people in video land will appreciate it.
All right. Coach, I know you talked about team handling every week the same, but how different was it yesterday in the film session after such a big win? How much momentum do you think this gives you guys?
I wouldn't use the word momentum for one win. I thought it was obviously it was a good Sunday. I asked a couple of questions, and if the answers are yes, everybody's supposed to stand up. We had 150 guys, not 150, 105 guys standing up, and it was nice. But we still had things to go over, things that were positive, things that were negative. There was more positive than negative, but we still had growth that had to happen. So it was a good, positive meeting.
How much do you feel like this team needed that to happen?
I think a lot of people needed it more than the team, me being one of them. But I think it was good for the entire community and everybody to get one of those.
Nico?
Nico, you haven't been here since we've got the microphone thing going on.
Exactly, yes. So right before the bye was my last time here. I did want to say, after watching Bill the last couple of days, that sort of thing, what was it defensively that was able to make such a difference? I mean, no touchdowns by Duke, low yardage. Now that you've had a chance to digest the video, what was the major difference defensively out there for you guys?
I think it was a lot of things. Obviously, I don't want to take away from what the defense did, because once again, in college football, if you play a football game and a team doesn't score a touchdown, that's big. It doesn't matter what happened during the game. That's a big deal. And to hold David Cutcliffe's football team to 2 field goals is really something that's extremely impressive. The turnovers make a big difference. The win played a part of that football game. I think also some of the injuries. That team is banged up. We talk about depth all the time on our football team, but that football team was extremely banged up, and that's what happens when you get this late in the season if you don't have the right surname, going across the back of your jersey. So not an excuse or anything like that for them, but they were banged up, and they had some injuries on the offensive side of the ball during the game. Now, all that being said, you watch the defensive tape, the defense played extremely hard. And some of those turnovers were created. They were not given, and it's always good to see that. And then anytime the defense scores on its own is an extreme positive. And then the flip side of that is when you look at the numbers, they played a lot of plays. The defense was out there, 85 plays. And at halftime, if I'm not mistaken, I've been mistaken before, at halftime it was over 50 plays, which is they were on pace to play 100 snaps. But it was because they were playing defense and getting a turnover. The offense was capitalizing very quickly, and then they had to go back there and play defense again. So by far, defensively, offensively, and as a team, it was the best effort of the season, and the score reflected that. If you go back and for the analytics guys, if you go back and check the records, that's the biggest differential for a win since I've been here. I mean, and that was a Power 5 opponent. That was a very, very convincing winning, and it was a well played game. I want to say the lowest penalty game we had, and we still had some corrections that we could have made. But it was thorough. It was extremely thorough.
I wanted to ask about the offensive line. I think it was apparent to anyone watching and just watching the season, that was a really good performance from them. But when you looked at the film, what specifically was better? Is it better push, better assignments, cutting down miscommunications? Where are those growth points?
Once again, it's the little things. It's the little things. I mean, you guys always hear me say that. It's the little things. I want to say we had one illegal procedure penalty. I think it was on a wide receiver. I might be wrong. But when you don't have a bunch of those and you're not going from 1st and 15 and you're operating at 1st and 10, you can stay on schedule. Okay, so you can run the football if you want. You can throw a short pass. You can run the football again, and then you get to third downs, and it's a makeable third down. Now, I'll look you dead in the eye and say I didn't like what our third down percentage was. But when you look at some of how many explosive plays we had in the running game and the throwing game, and then you tie that in with the turnovers and the field position that the defense was giving you in those turnovers, and you can have a game like what we had. Now, if we could turn around that third down percentage and get that a lot higher, I mean, then that game would have really been something. But I just think it was a combination of a bunch of stuff.
How much of the success they did have was kind of hinging on Carlos being able to play center and do what he needed to do?
You know, Carlos has been working at that for a long time, and the one thing that I always talk about, I'll say this, the one thing I always talk about is football's like baseball. And you're like, oh, okay, here goes one of those analogies. What in the hell does he mean by that? Well, if you want to have a good football team, or you want to have a good baseball team, you need to have a catcher, a pitcher, okay? Obviously, numerous pitchers. You better have a shortstop, a second baseman, and a really good center fielder. Then the rest of your baseball team, you can fill out the edges. It's no different on a football team. You want to have a tailback, you want to have a quarterback, you want to have a center. On defense, you want a one technique, you want a Mike linebacker, and you have a free safety. If you've got those 6 guys, then you can start filling in the other positions. You may have a good offense, you may have a good defense. You just don't want to put a new guy at center. It affects so many people, quarterbacks, the guards. It affects a lot of people, and you don't want to do it until they're ready. Carlos came out and he did a decent job. He really did. But he's been training for the job that he did ever since August. So I'm glad that he did well, and it might be something that he can hang around and do for a long period of time for us, and we'd probably be glad and happy to see if he could do that.
Tommy's obviously faced a little bit of criticism.
Did you say Tommy?
Tommy DeVito, yeah.
Okay.
Dealt with some criticism, some injuries this season, but I think it's fair to say he's settled in a little bit. I was curious what you've seen from him in terms of his maturity, both off the field with the criticisms, doing that stuff, and injuries, as well as just his confidence and just being more smart with, I guess, with turnovers.
Say the first thing that you said again.
Yeah, I guess just off the field specifically, he dealt with some criticism. Quarterback's kind of the scapegoat. He had some injuries. I guess, what have you seen from him?
That's what I thought you said. You said criticism about his injuries. His injury was real. Okay. Okay, so what are you asking? I'm not getting after you. You threw me off when you said, okay.
Just criticism separated from the injuries. He dealt with both.
Okay.
Have you seen his maturity in that way, I guess?
You know, quarterbacks get too much of the credit and they get too much of the blame, and it's just the way that position is. I think he's handled most of it okay, and he needs to get better at some of it, and he will. The longer he's here, the longer he's at the position, I think the better he'll get. But normally they're not as good as they think they are, and they're probably not as bad as everybody else thinks they are after a football game when things don't go right.
JD? Coach, after Saturday, we kind of talked about McKinley. You said you have to go back and look and see how many plays. You weren't even sure how many plays he played, so you couldn't really tell what kind of impact he had in coming back. But after getting a chance to look at the film and seeing what he did, how much of a difference do you think he made having him back in the middle of that defensive line?
He was just okay. He was just okay. I think the biggest difference was, is that he allowed other guys to play fresher. By having that one body there, you could put the other 3 guys, Ruff and Black, on a rotation where now they're fresher, okay? And between those 3 guys, along with Shaquille, they could do some things in there. It was a 4-guy rotation. They could do some things in there. So that was good. But really, based off of how he was last year, and what he was just okay, okay? He'll get better, but he was just okay the first time out.
Mark?
Coach, I just wanted to ask you why you think the defense played so hard, and we can handle the offense also in this response, but why do you think everything clicked finally in that game?
I don't know if you can put one thing on it. I go back to, I think that the guys were ready to play fast. We gave them an opportunity to play fast. We didn't have as much, obviously. But some of that tied into who you're playing. That quarterback is more of a runner, okay? He needs to still work on his throwing game a little bit, so you're allowed to play some simpler things in pass coverage. That's because of who he was. They lost their starting center, which means that they may not have used so many protections because they had their backup center in. And then you turn around and they lose their left tackle. I want to say that was in the first quarter. That guy's all right, by the way. I spoke to Coach Cutcliffe. He's doing okay. That's hard on an offensive line, you know, in a game like that, especially when you're going against, you know, Kendall and Alton off the edges, and then with some of the stuff, we were doing some internal blitzes inside with the linebackers in the one technique. So there was a lot of stress on their positions that were new, and I think that had a big impact on what they could do offensively.
Anything to do with having a different voice?
You know, you guys can write about that stuff. To me, I thought it was a good game plan. I thought the kids executed the game plan, and I think there was some things that went our way. It'll be interesting to see how it goes this Saturday, because the offense that we're about to play is a lot better than the offense we just played. And they got some cats, and they can do some things. So if you're watching the tape, okay, let's see what happens this Saturday. And hopefully, I hope the same thing happens, but they got some different animals out there. I shouldn't call people animals, I guess different players out there that are really good.
And Coach, you know, obviously you take it one game at a time. From the outside, we were looking last three, you need all three to get to a bowl game. To keep that going now, just needing these last two, what is that mindset like? Are these guys rejuvenated knowing that they can just keep this going, get another one Saturday, let's hope to stay alive, and hopefully that goal is achieved?
We're not following in that trap anymore. We're not going there anymore. We got Louisville at Louisville. Satterfield, Scott, he does a really nice job. He's done a fantastic job for a first-year coach. He really has. And he's put everybody on alert that those guys are going to be good again. And we got an opportunity to go down there. As far as I know, we haven't done well there. You guys probably know better than I have. I know I haven't done well there, going down there. And we got an opportunity to play a football game. It seems like the weather is going to be almost similar. So if you guys are coming to the game, you need to wear the same stuff that you wore at the last game. And let's see what happens. But that's an interesting place. The last time we went down there, I remember seeing Lamar do all his crazy stuff. And I'm just glad that the NFL guys have the same issues with Lamar that we had with him here at Syracuse University.
Josh, Dino, I'm kind of working ahead on something as high school football season ends and then eventually whenever you guys end. But I was curious what you remember from the last football game that you played and kind of what it meant to you.
What level are you referring to?
Like the last time that you strapped up pads and played football.
In the pros? I mean, in Canada?
Yeah. But like the last football game you ever played, like what you remember, whatever you pinpoint to the last football game that you ever played with.
The last time I ever played in a football game, okay, I was in Canadian Football League. I was at the BC Lions. I had just got injured in practice. I'm pretty sure they had realized by checking me out that we're at the end of the camp. They're about to make final cuts. And they had just realized that I had went through the entire camp without an ACL. We went to our very last game before our final cuts. They played everybody the entire game, and then with 2 minutes left, maybe even less than that, they put me in at tailback and pitched me the ball. I ran the ball one time. Actually, I think I ran the ball twice, because my roommate was the quarterback that was in right there. I think he audibled the second time to get me a play. And then they cut me the next day because they had me on tape as playing, which means I was okay, and that they didn't have to pay me for my contract. That was my last snap of football. He asked.
Not to just tee you right up for another story, but Eric Coley said for the first month that he was here, obviously you hired Vince. You didn't know who he was. You didn't know, like, Vince's stepson was like potentially a Power 5 recruit. Obviously he's here. What was that like, and what do you remember from like learning who he was in that exchange with Vince?
I'm not sure the question you just asked. Are you telling me I didn't know who Eric was when he was already on campus or when he was in high school?
When he was in high school, you hired Vince, the family moves here. And
Right.
He said for the first month, you didn't know who he was, but he had like maybe a MAC offer or something, and Vince hadn't told you ahead of time.
Oh, okay. No, I heard that he had a son that played football. Okay. And then I was checking the local stuff, and I know he was rolling up the rushing yards. And I still remember, Nico, I want to say your station, I think he played in the dome, and he has a long touchdown run going down the right side, right down the home sideline for a touchdown. I'm not sure. I think they won the game. But he was really good running back. So I don't know about the first part of that, but he told me his son played ball. And I constantly read the newspapers, and I was looking at the stats. And if you go through his year, he was one of the stat leaders in the community, and he had some really good games in the dome that I would watch on Channel 9, then Channel 3, and then Channel 5, because I like to watch all the stations just to see what they're saying. So I might have knew about him a little bit more than what he thinks.
Brandon?
Coach, you mentioned a little bit earlier that Louisville's got some pretty talented offensive players. What makes their offense so special? What makes them click?
4-3, 4-4, 4-3. These guys, I could read it off to you. They are lightning fast, and they get out in space, there's going to be trouble. They've got an offensive lineman, I think is like 6'7", 367 or something like that. And not only is he big, but a lot of people think that he's going to be like a very, very high draft choice. And you watch him move and you go, wow. Okay, I don't need to know his name because he's going to be the biggest thing out there. And those guys, they've got some people. The cupboards were not bare when he went in there, but I will still say that the team that we played last year, okay, is not the team that we're going to face this year. These guys really enjoy what Scott and his crew is doing. They've definitely bought in, and I believe they're already qualified for a bowl. I'm pretty sure I can say that. And, they're going to be somebody to be reckoned with in the near future in this side of the conference.
In the back?
Coach, one thing I wanted to know was, in light of all the things that happened this week on campus, is this something that the team has talked about as far as the graffiti that was seen on campus?
I've heard them say little things about it, but it's nothing that we've talked about in a major meeting. If those guys want to talk about that stuff, we always end our meetings with one of those free times where they can bring up anything they want to bring up. They have not brought that up yet, but obviously that's something that I've heard them talking about in small groups, but they haven't brought it up in front of the entire family.
Your thoughts on it?
I think that it's the constitutional right. You can protest anything and have free speech. It's all written into the Constitution. That's what makes us different than everyone else, I believe.
Time for two more questions, JD and Mark.
Coach, going back to Louisville real quick, Javion Hawkins, one of the best running backs in the ACC, and at times this season, you guys have struggled defensively against those upper echelon running backs. What do you think needs to change run defense-wise to be able to contain a guy like that?
I don't know if you can contain a guy like that. I know this, we better get him before he gets started because he's one of those 4-3 guys I'm talking about, and if he gets out there, he's a blur. He's really, really good. So to me, you got to get on him early before he gets started, before he gets downhill, before he turns on the jets, and the jets is what he has. So that'll be our best chance, I believe. You get him out in space, it's going to be a difficult task.
Last question, Mark. Coach, from Channel 10, by the way. I know you meant to say that also. DeVito, more on Tommy on his maturity as a player, his interception streak, and I know you probably want to jinx it, but what has he been doing these last few games that he wasn't the first few games of the year that you see out there?
I just think he's settling down, you guys. I want to say, okay, we're at game 10. Is that correct? About to play 10 or about to play 11? About to play 11. Thank you. So you add the 10 plus the 2, that's 12. You add the other 2 that he wasn't in the game that much. He's basically finished one season. He's about 12 games in, okay, and we're starting to see some growth in some areas, and hopefully we need to see even more growth before we move on to the next chapter, because this chapter is not done yet. So he's growing up. He's seeing things a lot slower, and right now he's on pace. He needs to continue to grow. He still has a lot of growing to do.
Thanks, Coach, for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Channel 10.
Come on now.